Hungary, a small country, right in the heart of Europe. In 1885, this country made a decision. They would build a parliament building, but not just any ordinary building. 40 million bricks, 40 kilograms of gold, just for decoration, 100,000 workers, and a full 19 years. Today, this building stands as one of the most grand parliaments in the entire world. But here is the question. A country that was still developing at the time. Why did it pour all of its resources, all of its time, all of its 100,000 people into a single building? No economic reason, no military necessity, just a building. Some people say they didn't build it at all. It was already there, and it was simply registered under their name. Today, we are going to find the answer to that question. We won't just listen to the claims. We will look at the real evidence. First, let's understand what exactly is Tartaria. If you pick up European maps from the 1700s, which are still freely available in museums today, you will see a name, Grand Tartary. European cartographers, that is map makers, simply called the vast regions of Central Asia, Russia, and Siberia Tartary, only because they didn't know much about this area. It was a geographic label, just like we say Middle East today. But then a theory emerged, and it spread like wildfire across the internet. Some people said this was not just a label. This was a real, advanced civilization, an empire, a power, so great that when it was destroyed, governments across the entire world came together and erased every trace of it, and one remnant of that civilization still exists today. These people claim, in these buildings. Now, I'll be honest with you, when I first heard this theory, even I felt like there might be something to it. I looked at the photos of these buildings myself, and honestly, it made me think. So I decided I will look for the actual records, primary sources, real history. And what I found was completely different from what I expected. Now let's get to the claims that Tartaria believers make. And I will be honest, at first glance, these claims seem very convincing. Think about it. If you were living in the 1800s, and these buildings were standing right in front of you, what would you think? Would this look like the work of ordinary humans, or something else entirely? First example, the U.S. Capitol, Washington, D.C. The cornerstone was laid in 1793. It was put into use in 1800. The precision of its columns, the perfection of its dome. And this question naturally comes to mind. Could 18th century humans really do this? Second example, that same Hungarian Parliament I mentioned at the very beginning. 40 kilograms of gold, 40 million bricks, 19 years. A developing country. Tartaria believers say a great power had already built this. Hungary simply put its name on it. Third example, the Winter Palace, St. Petersburg. Construction began in 1754. 1,500 rooms, 1,945 windows, designed by Italian architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli. The claim is that this level of craftsmanship was simply not possible for humans in the 1700s. So the Tartaria believers have three major claims. Claim number one, this same architectural style exists all over the world, in Europe, in America, in Asia. It must have been built by one single civilization. Claim number two, there are no authentic photos of the original construction of many buildings. No recording of them being built. Claim number three, all over the world, many old buildings have basement windows that are below ground level, meaning a catastrophic mud flood came and buried entire civilizations. After hearing these claims, I turned toward the actual records. And what I found against each and every claim, I am going to tell you right now. This is the section that most Tartaria channels never show you, because here there are actual records, real names, real numbers on the first claim that the same architecture exists worldwide. It is true that similar buildings exist all over the world, but the reason for this is not a lost empire. From 1750 to 1900, an architectural movement swept across the entire world, neoclassical and Beaux-Arts architecture. This style was inspired by the ancient buildings of Rome and Greece. There was a school in Paris, the École des Beaux-Arts. Architects from all over the world came there to study. Same teachers, same textbooks, same design principles. Then these architects went back to their own countries and applied that exact same style. Rulers were also inspired by each other's buildings. One saw it, another said, "Build ours the same way." This is exactly what is happening today. Why do glass and steel skyscrapers look the same all over the world today? Because architects study at the same universities. They follow the same trends. This is not proof of a lost empire. This is the global spread of ideas. On the second claim, that there are no construction photos. Photography became commercially available in 1839, and at that time, cameras were so heavy, film was so slow, that nobody regularly documented construction sites. But the absence of photos does not mean the absence of records. The payroll records of the U.S. Capitol's construction are still publicly available today at the National Archives of America. The name of architect William Thornton, workers' wages, lists of materials, detailed records of both enslaved African Americans and European craftsmen. The Hungarian Parliament, started in 1885, completed in 1904. Architect Imre Steindel's complete design archive is held in Hungary's National Library. There are records of 100,000 workers. There are records of the supply of 40 million bricks. The Winter Palace. Architect Bartolomeo Rastrelli's own letters still exist in the archives of St. Petersburg, in which he is reporting construction progress directly to Empress Elizabeth. No cover-up, no missing records, just the fact that we never seriously looked. On the third claim, basement windows below ground level being proof of a mud flood. This is completely normal urban development. In the 19th century, cities grew rapidly. Roads were raised layer by layer to lay new pipes, new sidewalks, new drainage systems. The lower floors of already existing buildings slowly went below ground level. Buildings like this still exist in New York today. They exist in Paris. They exist in London. This does not mean a mud flood. This means the natural and gradual growth of a city. So all three claims are explained by real records. But I don't want to stop here, because there are some questions that even mainstream history cannot fully explain, and those questions are genuinely interesting. I want to be completely honest here. Mainstream explanations are mostly valid, but there are some things that still make me think personally. First question. The Chicago World Fair of 1893. 27,000 workers built an entire city in just 28 months. That is less than 2.5 years. At a time when there were no cranes like today, no JCBs, no modern prefabrication, buildings that looked like marble, grand domes, magnificent facades. Today's structural engineers say, construction of this scale in 28 months with the technology of that era was extraordinarily ambitious. And then, when the fair ended, most of the buildings were torn down, demolished. All that effort, all that expense, all that time, just to tear it down. This is officially documented, but the logic still leaves you stunned. Second question, acoustic engineering. In Grand Central Terminal, New York, near the Oyster Bar, there is a specific archway. Its name is the Whispering Gallery. If you stand in one corner and speak in the softest voice, a person standing in the opposite corner at a considerable distance can hear you clearly, without any microphone, without any electronic system, simply because of the architecture. And what makes it even more astonishing is, the architects of this building, Reed and Stem and Warren and Wetmore, did not deliberately design this. It was an accidental discovery even for them, an unexpected result of the curved geometry of the Guastavino tiles. Such a grand, such a precise building, and such a perfect acoustic chamber, created purely by accident. This does not prove Tartaria, but it does say that in the architecture of the 19th century, there are things that even today we cannot fully explain. Third question, and this one makes me think the most. 40 kilograms of gold was used in the Hungarian Parliament, just for decoration. At the time, Hungary was a developing country. People barely had enough to eat. And yet, 19 years, 100,000 workers, 40 kilograms of gold. The question is not whether this was possible. It was clearly possible, because the building still stands today. The question is, why? Why did a developing country do all of this? Whose idea was it? Who funded it? And all just for a single parliament building. This does not prove Tartaria, but it does say that the priorities of 19th century humans, their vision, their scale, was completely different from today.